What's up, guys? What's up? What's up? Welcome to Tuesday Tea Time with Icky. I am trying kind of a new setup. Our wall behind me that we have. You've seen it from different angles. We've got a cool couch and a big TV screen over here. Nice couch over there. And this is where we do stuff from. What's up, Matt? Good to see you, Jillian. And good to see those of you who are on here with us. So today's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to kind of cruise through. I'm kind of slogging through right now. I'm a little bit delayed. So if you happen to see it and it looks a little delayed, just let me know through the comments. In fact, if you would, I'd appreciate you to drop a comment right now and tell me if it's coming through nice and smooth or if it's choppy. Because from my end, it's a little choppy. I'm going to try a couple things real quick, see what we can do from my angle before we get rolling. Yeah, man, we miss hanging out with you too, Jillian. Jillian, you rock star. Jillian and Matt, they're actually kind of like my co-hosts. Like every week, you two come on and you guys like keep rocking through some good stuff. So I appreciate you on here well as the rest of you all. Okay, let's see how this goes. If it is choppy, you tell me otherwise, all right? Okay, so this week I've got Caiti Lopez. It's not outside my window, man. Oh man, guys, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna unplug a few things here and see if we can get this going nice and smooth. It could be, or my seat. I hope you are. I'm still here, and I still got Caiti on the line. Let's see how this goes. Let's see. Oh, hello. Everything's so big now. Waza. Caiti, are you still there? You look like you're still there. Good. You keep hanging in there. Keep hanging in there. I think it's running a little bit smoother. How's that, my friends? Is it still as choppy as the ocean outside your window, Jillian? I hope not. Maybe a little bit better. Okay, cool. So, let's get this rocking, my friends. All right, here we go. All right, you're with me. Very cool. So this week, I am interviewing Caiti Lopez, speech language pathologist. She's been in the public school sector for 9 years, which if you look at her, she looks like she's like 19, which means she started working when she was 10. She's currently serving the families in the Compton United School District. She's passionate about helping kids find their own voice. So she's going to be an amazing guest. Hang in there. Start getting your questions ready because we're going to talk to her about families, inclusion, and special needs, ministries, sidekick. There's a ton of projects coming up. You're not going to miss out. Before we do, I do want to remind you that we're still doing our Say Hello campaign. So go to www.sec.adventist.org/say hello. Click the submit button and then say hello. Put a little bit of info about you in there. Say hi, like my guy right here, Bob Canete. He is a church member at the Light Above Church. That's right, the Light Above. And he's got a personal goal to have a positive impact on as many lives as possible. Bob, here's to you, man. Keep up the great work, especially this time we need more people being a positive impact in the world around us. And of course, next week, I hope you join me. I am going to be hanging out with Teresa Farah. She is the owner of Teresa's Mexican Cafe. It's found on 701 West Cesar Estrada Chavez Avenue, space 108. If you just check out Teresa's on Yelp or check her out on Travel Finder, you're going to see just how phenomenal her reviews are. People love her. She's got a huge following on Instagram. The food is amazing. She's going to be hanging out with us next week to talk about entrepreneurship, business, small business ownership, and thriving during the pandemic. And of course, like we always do, faith. But that's next week. This week, we're hanging out with Caiti Lopez. Right. Caiti Lopez. Good afternoon, my girl.
Hey.
Good to see you on. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm a little frazzle dazzle, schmazzle capazzle. I did this last minute change in the look here because your man said, "Hey Icky, change it so that we can see the different angles. So I changed it, and then my internet went crazy, and it's one of those days, but not
I get
bad.
it. I blame a lot of stuff on him too. It's okay.
It's easy because those Polynesians, they're kind of like low key chill, so you can blame stuff on them. Katie, my girl, what are you drinking today?
So I am not drinking anything. I rushed over here after work. My water bottle's in there.
I've never
I
had a
failed.
guest to
I
me.
failed.
Ladies and gentlemen, Caiti Lopez, tea failer of the day. So you're not drinking. So you have nothing to drink. You're gonna be parched for our time together.
I am. I am. Maybe Pono will bring me some water. I see like a sparklets over here in the corner, and I'm just kind of like eyeing it right now.
Like I can't. I want it, but I can't. All good, all good. Okay, well, I'm drinking water today, my girl, and it's let me tell you, it's quenching a thirst. I wish you could have some, but I know you can't.
There we go.
Oh, okay. Love from the hubby dubby. Very nice. Very good. Hey, as we get started today, I do want to start by asking, is there anybody in the world you want to give a shout out to right now? Do you have family, friends, those who are watching along? Feel free to give a quick shout out and some love.
I have no idea if I have friends or family watching. I told them, but I don't know if they're watching.
Very cool. If you're a friend or family, Katie loves you. And thank you for joining us. Katie is living in Long Beach. And right now, Katie, you are working in the Compton School District, right?
Yep.
What is your professional title, like your official professional title?
So my professional title is speech language pathologist, which doesn't make sense to anybody. And it's kind of a funny thing. Like in our field, people are very like, I am a speech language pathologist, but like I tell my kids, oh, I'm your speech teacher. I don't really care. One of my favorite students, she called me Pete because she couldn't say speech. Yeah.
Oh.
And I loved it. Like she'd walk around with her hands in her pockets, and I saw her one time on campus, and she's like, "Hi, Pete," and then like kept walking. She's like a little old man. I loved her. So
That is
I mean,
adorable.
I'll go by.
Do you let like other people call you Pete? I love that. That's adorable.
Nobody else has tried, but if they wanted to, it'd be like it would remind me of this little girl. She was awesome.
Wow. So, as Pete, as you being Pete, what do you do on a normal day? You drive into work, or you take maybe public transportation. You get there, and what is a day in the shoes of a speech? What are you?
Language,
Speech and language pathologist. What do you do? Again? Speech and language pathologist.
So I think normal times, but probably like get in, check my email like everybody else, and then I would see various groups of kids throughout the day. Sometimes I would go into the special ed classrooms, and I would do like push-in lessons with groups of kids, or sometimes I do like a whole group lesson. Just working with different types of kids, working with different teachers.
Yeah.
There was last year, I had a really good relationship with one of my third grade teachers. And so we did a lot of like literacy activities. Her students, she actually had the lower kids of the third grade cohort. And so we did a lot of literacy activities to try and get those kids back up to speed. So that was really fun. Her and we worked really well together. One of the special ed teachers, she does Fun Friday. And a lot of her students don't know how to, well, she actually did this every day, but I would go in on Fridays. A lot of her students don't actually know how to play and how to do imaginative play. And so we would go in, and she would have a group of students with a group of toys, and I would have another group of students with a different group of toys. And we would teach them how to like play with the toys appropriately. And then how to share with each other. It was super fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we'd work on like a lot of feeling words, when somebody's upset.
What's a feeling word? Give me a feeling word.
Like,
give me a word for my feelings right now.
Like, I feel mad, or I feel, it was awesome. Like one of my students last year in that group.
Awesome.
We were really trying to get him, I had like a visual system for him to figure out what he felt, starting with like, I think it was like, I don't know, blue, and then like up to like red, as being super upset. Um, and he like said that he was upset, and I asked him why he was upset. And I do something where like I have the kids like do meatball hands so that they're not like touching everything and everybody. And
I'm
so
guessing
like,
this is meatball hands.
yeah,
All
like
right.
I guess we're SDA, so we don't really know meatballs.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Special K Loaf hands.
so anyway, like just before that, like I was like, okay, meatball hands, everybody, like before we got started. And then something happened, like he didn't get to do what he wanted to do and he was mad. And I was trying to get him to kind of link why he was mad. And so I was like, okay, student, we're not supposed to say their names, why are you mad? And he said, cause I want to eat my meatballs, which was not the reason why he was mad. But it's like one of those things I'll never forget. I was like, wait, what? And then like, it's never a boring day at my job. Like every day, it's super awesome. Like last week, I was texting a kid and like his nose started to bleed because it's pretty dry right now.
Yeah.
And his mask was all bloody. It was kind of, and he was like, my neck. I just don't think he knew the word for nose.
That's the occupational hazard of hanging out with kids. They, they say like the most interesting and funny things in the world, right? Like, and they don't even know they're doing it.
No.
So there's probably a million of these, but what's probably your most favorite part of your job? When you're doing it, what is the thing that you love the most about it?
I mean, the connections with the kids, the relationships with the kids is like the best. The relationships with families too. I really, really appreciate that. I was new last year to Compton School District, so it takes a couple years to build relationships with families, and I didn't really have the relationship with the family. I did with the students, but you only see them once a year at parent-teacher conferences, or for us, we call them IEPs, and that's and so we really only see them then. And if there's an issue, we get to talk to them. But during the pandemic, or during the first part of school closure, I was calling parents once a week.
Right.
And, you get pretty close with some of these families, they're telling you like all of it. But I really appreciate like the relationship for sure. And then I do appreciate like giving kids language, or helping them find the language for things like, how do they feel? Because that's something that's super important to communicate and learn how to be in space with other people.
Absolutely.
So
we're gonna stop for a quick second and say hi to Katie. So let's say hi to Katie. Let's say hi to Katie. Katie says hi. Kayla says hi, Katie.
Hi.
And let's stop and say hi to Karen. Katie, let's say hi to Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Mom.
Karen says, "You go, girl." I feel like I like your mom a lot. So there's some shout outs there. By the way, Kayla, Icky's here too. So if you want to say, Icky, I'm here every week. Every week. You can say hi to me. Hi to you too, Karen. My name's Icky. Nice to meet you. So, Katie, here comes the other question. The flip side of that question. What is the toughest part of your job?
Budgets.
Ooh. Speak, girl, speak.
I think budgets is probably like the hardest part, because I mean, like, to be completely frank, there's a lot of things that I just saw Pono's comment.
Oh, no, I'm here too.
So I think budgets are like the hardest thing, because that really, like, we can only do what we can, like what we have the funds for. And so that's the thing, because I see kids that need a lot, and there's only so much time that I can give, or there's only so much resources that the school has to give. And so that, I think, is the hardest part, is like, it really does take a village to raise a kid, and you really need like all parts involved. And so I think that is also kind of something that is the hardest part of my job, is like school, you're only there for 6 hours a day, and then we can only support the parents so much. And so, we really need everybody, like parents, aunties, uncles, like church, little league, everybody like involved in the whole process.
Absolutely. So true. That's got to be a difficult task when it comes to budgeting. Or because of your particular department and it's specialized, do you find that you tend to be on the chop block first or programs that has to do with you?
No, everybody like the thing we're like the first ones to get added to a kid.
Got it.
um so no, I just like budgets in terms of like sometimes kids need devices to communicate instead of using like their own voice. And so that's really hard to get past, which is like, oh, the kid needs it, just give it to them, that kind of
Mm.
a thing. The other thing too that I thought of that I don't know why I didn't say this first is paperwork. All of the paperwork is like such a pain, but it's okay. It's just a part. Like everybody has something in their job they don't like. So
Most of the people that I talk to that have service jobs like yours that works with people, your least favorite part is the paperwork. Like all the
for sure.
paperwork. Um,
For sure.
what led you to want to go into this profession? Is there a story, a mythos of how this all began for you?
Yeah, kind of actually. I
Hmm.
thought I wanted to be an elementary teacher and
Right.
then
Which is also a
I
very good job.
it
That's a
is.
great occupation. Yeah.
It is for sure a good job. I was planning on doing elementary ed. And then my cousin actually was down visiting for a speech and language like convention, the American
Hmm.
Speech and Hearing Association convention. I didn't even know she was a speech therapist, but she's several years older than me, so it's not like we would talk about work.
Got it.
And so I was home from college my first year, I think for Thanksgiving break, and she asked what I wanted to do, and I said that I was thinking about elementary ed. And she was like, no, you need to do this. It's so much better. And so then I kind of looked into it. And then I still was elementary ed because I didn't know what it was. And then, and then I did take like an intro class at PUC and I really liked it, but I still was like not really sure about my life. And then I took a year off of school and I lived in Montana for a year.
Hmm.
And I figured out that I was gonna like work at a science school in like the Grand Tetons and then be a ski bum during the winter and just
That's
like
a
work at a
great
ski
plan.
lift.
That's a great
And
plan.
then my mom, she was like, well, that's what she said. She's like, oh, that's such a good plan.
Yeah.
How about you apply to Loma Linda? And if you get in, then you can go to and do speech. And if you don't get in, like a ski bum. And I got in, so that's where I ended up. And then I know I was elementary ed initially, but then another aunt of mine, she is a retired general in the Army, but when she was a full on general in the Army, her
Dang, she was a
baby,
general. Can we stop there for a quick
yeah,
second? Can we just talk about this for a minute? She was a general in the army?
yeah, like full
Dang.
on brigadier general. You should have her on Tea
Yo,
Time.
I
She's
should, yo.
SDA-ish.
Dang.
Like she went to Loma Linda Academy and then PUC and Loma Linda Medical Center, University for Med School. So
Wow.
yeah,
She's
we'll try and
gangster.
hook that one up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hey, hook that up.
yeah,
Hey, is that your mom's sister?
kind of. Yeah, like
Karen?
that's
Karen, reach out to your sister, the general.
yeah.
And
She's actually running for NYC mayor right now
is
for
that
next
right?
year's. Yeah, she's a boss.
That's boss,
Like
yo.
she really is. And
Dang.
so like her project was the Wounded Warrior Project. So if you see
Yep.
that stuff, like that's Auntie Lori. Um,
Very cool.
And so, anyway, she has a big heart for mental health. She's a psychiatrist. And so, she was actually a keynote speaker for the American Speech and Hearing Association, like when I was in undergrad. And it was because she was wanting to work on traumatic brain injury and mental
Wow.
health at the same time, which I guess was a new thing, but I've always been in school after her. So, it isn't to me. And then I was like, I'm gonna work with returning veterans. This is gonna be amazing. And then the very first, because she's a very passionate person, and it like her passion just drips off on whoever's around her. And so, my first internship at the medical center at Loma Linda, the East Campus Rehab Hospital, I worked with a young man. He was 22 years old that had traumatic brain injury. And he was such a sweet guy. Like he had moved back home to help his mom take his little brother. He was in nursing school, like super productive member of society, really sweet guy. And he could not remember 3 numbers in sequence. Like
Wow.
that was one of the things we were working on in our therapy session. And he kept asking me, when can I go back to nursing school? Miss, when do you think I can go back to nursing school? And I like got after that session, I just got into my car and like bawled. It was
Wow.
like so awful to me,
Yeah.
and so I realized I'm not cut out to work with adults in that way. I'm
Right.
super, super grateful that people do, and that is like something they're super passionate about. But I find with kids, it's a little bit easier for me in terms of like, I'm teaching them something they've never done before. But
Yeah.
with an adult, you're teaching them skills that they once had.
Yeah.
And I think I probably would have felt differently if I had worked with that young man again. But the nature of that internship was I was only there a couple hours once a week, and so
Right.
I never got to see him again.
Wow.
So if I had seen the progress, I might have felt differently. But then I kind of switched to working with kids, and they're really funny, you
They
know.
are. They are. So what did little Caiti want to do? Like little Caiti, like what was her plans of life when you were little? What did you think about? What did you want to
I think
become?
I think I wanted to be an artist. I am not that artistic at all. Nothing like Pono, that's for sure. And then I also wanted to be a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I respect that.
That was before Blackfish came out, you
Right.
know?
And then Blackfish came and I was like, I don't want to admit that I want to be in there.
Right.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool. So that's really interesting. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm really excited for us to talk about the things we're going to talk about today. If you're just joining us, I am with speech and language pathologist Caiti Lopez, who is rocking it out as a millennial living in Long Beach with her handsome, bandsome husband. And she works at the Compton Unified Public School sector, right? Something like that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. I wanted to ask you a few questions as we keep rocking forward here, Caiti, and it's going to have to do with inclusion and family with special needs. So as we kind of go deeper into that area, I do want to ask, do you have any actual concerns about the field that you work in? Is there things that you kind of have to wrestle with on a daily that can be tiring? And I'm going to ask this because there are probably people who are going to watch this and be like, yeah, I want to do that too. Right. And so what are some
Yeah.
pitfalls they need to look out for?
I think one of the pitfalls that, like, especially as you talk about inclusion, one of the things that I notice, like, our field can definitely be ableist, which I'll define that term in a moment. And what I mean by that is like, the kids we work with, there's not necessarily something that needs to be fixed, right? Like this idea of, oh, they have a disability, we need to fix them. So that's something that I wrestle with when I am coming up with to work on my students. Am I going to work on something that is going to take away from who they are and fit better into society? Or am I going to work on things that are going to help them connect better with other people, if that's what they want to do? So an example of this might be, kids with autism, or I could say autistic kids, which I'm sure we might get to the
Yep.
difference between that in a moment. But they tend to not have good eye contact. Eye contact is really awkward for autistic people or kids with autism. And so why would I work on that if that's something that doesn't necessarily, if it's uncomfortable for them? They can have a relationship with a person just fine if they don't have what we call typical eye contact,
Yeah.
often. So that something like that is something that I wrestle with, like kids with Down syndrome, they tend to have less muscle tone than a typical able-bodied person. And so, they may not be able to produce certain sounds appropriately. Also, kids with Down syndrome, their palates and their mouths, like the palates are smaller, and so their tongue kind of takes up a little bit more space in their mouth. And so is it appropriate to be like really hardcore about them, with their speech sounds versus just making sure that they're understandable, right? If that's not necessarily a goal of the family or a goal of the kid, then why would we work on it? So those kinds of things I think are really important. And I wish a lot more speech therapists and other people that work in the field would think about these things. What is it that would help a kid have better relationships? What are their goals versus, okay, this is society. This is how we can make them fit into society better.
Right. I want to pivot a little bit into the faith community. So you're partnering up with Southern California Conference, and you're doing something called the Sidekick Project. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I really feel like while you are working in the public sector, our faith communities need a lot of help when it comes to this particular area of ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like the thing I'm the most passionate about.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do it.
So the Sidekicks Project is kind of a two-part project. The first one is just looking at churches or partnering with churches to help them recognize how they're inclusive or ways that they can become better inclusive. Yeah, that makes sense. um, and so, things that we don't often think about if we are a neurotypical, that means your brain functions just fine, um, or functions within that societal norm.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Able-bodied means you don't have any mobility issues, anything like that. So when we're typical people, we don't necessarily think of somebody who might be different than us. How would they have issues accessing things? So, things like, is it easy to get from the parking lot to the main sanctuary? Are there ramps, for somebody who might have mobility issues? How can we create things to be a little bit more visual if somebody has an auditory, like a hearing impairment, or they're deaf? How do we make things more auditory if somebody has a visual impairment or they're blind? And then a lot of times, like, are there anything in our church services that might cause somebody with a sensory issue to not be so comfortable? If there's
Mm,
loud music or not loud,
mm.
bright,
Right.
bright
Yeah.
lights. And so things like that. So that's kind of the first part, is just really educating our churches on what we can have access points. And then the second piece is almost like a buddy ministry, if you will. The idea behind that is that we would partner with different churches to set these buddy ministries up at their church. So if I am a family and I have a kid with special needs, I can call up the church and say, hey, we want to be a part of your Sidekicks program. And then that church would pair the family up with 2 trained volunteers. And the reason why it's 2 is because that way the 2 volunteers can work out who's going to be there that weekend. That way, so you're not having to be on every single weekend. If you want to go
Right.
camping, you can go camping. And so the families would be paired up, and then the trained volunteer is really just there to help facilitate relationships. So
Mm,
a lot of times in our special ed classes, we do have one-on-ones, but that one-on-one often gets kids, they don't often like kind of seclude the kid, and they don't mean to. It's just this way of training. So they're there to help kind of, notice like, oh, hey, you're wearing a red shirt. You're wearing a red shirt. Do you guys both like the color red? Things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like those conversation points, or also the sidekick will hopefully know the student or the child really well, and kind of notice like, oh, the fluorescent light is really bright today, or it's buzzing. Is it okay? And they can kind of alert the Sabbath school teacher, is it okay if we turn off one and leave the other one on? This could
Right.
be a potential issue for so
Katie, so let me
those
ask
kinds
you a
of things.
question. As somebody who is getting this project started here in SoCal, we're talking to diverse kinds of churches. Some of these faith communities are huge, right? Hundreds, maybe thousands of people there, and others of them are just a handful of people, maybe a couple or three families, and they might be feeling like, well, can we afford this? What would you say to a group, a faith community that says, can we even afford something like this? Is
Yeah,
this something that is
absolutely.
or is this something so practical that you can do even with a very small budget?
Absolutely. You can do it with absolutely a very small budget. You know, I the only things that I could see that would cost a lot of money would be if you like didn't have ramps to your sanctuary. You know,
Mm,
so what creative things can you do to maybe not put cement down, but maybe you have like plastic that you know, a plastic ramp or something that you could put out like that would be really the only thing that would financially cost you. The other really cool thing, which is super awesome, and I'm super grateful that the SoCal conference has given us a budget. So um, we're creating little sensory bags for the different families if they so want
sensory bags,
one.
I love it.
Yeah. So like this is kind of a crazy. We were on a cruise for my auntie's birthday back in January before COVID. Well, I guess COVID was kind of happening. We like to live on the edge,
Right
apparently.
there.
Um, but we like when we got into our room, there was like a little letter saying like, if you want a sensory packet, like please let us know. We'll be happy to deliver you one. And I was like, what? Even a cruise ship knows how to love people. Like this is awesome,
Right.
you know? And so that's something that SCC has given us a budget. So we're creating sensory packets, little bags that we can give to our families if they so want, you know, that have things like like a heavy weighted lap bag, noise counseling headphones, and then like some sunglasses, and then a couple fidget toys too.
Mm. So really, when it comes down to it, it's not even a matter of how much this is going to cost. It's a matter of how much do we care, really.
It's a matter of how much we care. And of course, like I'm gonna be honest, the biggest thing is like, you know, it takes manpower for sure,
Yeah.
because each family would probably, you know, take two volunteers. But you know, like if you're passionate about kids and you're passionate about people, like it's not, and it's pretty low key. It's not like you're having to plan a lesson, you know, night before and teach it. You're just there
Right.
to be an extra body in the room to kind of, and you're there to assist the Sabbath school teacher. If anything, you're like a glorified, you know, I guess.
And nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
As we talk about being caring, having rapport, as Kayla would put it, making these connections with these particular families, I notice that sometimes the way we use our words matter. So can we talk about our language and how we're able to communicate, especially with families that we're not familiar with or that we're working with? Let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah. So I think it's really the first little bit of advice I have to give is it's gonna be awkward. Um, when you're first kind of learning how to do this. And the reason why is because the disability umbrella is so large.
Mm,
You have, I mean, I just listed out the different like mobility, vision, auditory impairments, you know, sensory or the autism spectrum disorder, and then you also have like cognitive deficits, like you know, Down syndrome and everything. So there are little sub communities within this big umbrella, and you also have even tinier sub communities within those individual um, impairments or
right,
disabilities.
right.
So you know, there are people within the community who there is no shame in having a disability. So they will say, I am disabled. That is what makes me me. You know, I am autistic. So it's not, there's no shame in it, which
Mm,
absolutely there should be no shame in it, right? So there are people who that's what they want. And then there's this idea of people first language. And a lot of families that have kids with Down syndrome, you'll hear that with them. You know, this is my son with Down syndrome, as opposed to my Down syndrome son.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to ask people, maybe not the first time you meet them, but hey, how do you want me to talk about this? How do you want me to refer to your son? Or or if it's an adult, how do you want to be referred to? I think that that's really important to let people tell us. And then, if we do offend somebody, we need to get out of our own feels, right? Like sometimes
Ooh, preach that, girl.
we offend, if we offend somebody, it's so often it's like, well, they just need to not be so sensitive. No, actually, we need to be a little bit more sensitive. Like we're the one doing the offending. So we need to,
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, please have grace with me, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to getting offended. So I think that that's really important, kind of that people first language, or I mean, not the people first language, knowing where they are on that spectrum is really important. And I talked about getting out of your feels. The other thing that I was going to say about that, is this idea of like, how do we convey value?
Mm-hmm.
I know that sometimes we can say, the word autistic is not shameful, but the way you use it might be, right?
Ah.
And so I think that that's really important too, is just kind of checking yourself. Am I conveying the value of this person in the way that I say these words?
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, I think that's so good in like every aspect of our lives,
Mm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
every different intersection of people. I think it's really important to check ourselves with that. So that is the next thing. And then you also kind of mentioned like, how do you build rapport? Well, Kayla said rapport,
Yeah.
but how do you build relationship with people? In the therapy world, we use the word rapport. So the same way you would build relationship with anybody else. Like, if you see somebody if you see a family and you both have 8-year-old sons, like, oh, hey, your son, looks like our kids are the same age. Oh, cool. Where do you guys go to school? Where do we, or if you see somebody wearing like an awesome shirt, just like you would say it to anybody else, oh,
Mm.
hey, I really like your style. Like there's no,
I feel like you're teaching us how to make friends, period. Like, which
yeah,
is
like
a really great tool in the world today. Yeah.
like I think that's the thing that like we get kind of caught up in, is like, oh, I don't know how to talk to them. They're a
Yeah.
person, they want to be friends or they may not want to be friends. And like, that's the other thing too, that I think we think, oh, like I'm going to be friends with of course they want to be my friend. Who knows? Like,
Right.
they're a normal person just like anybody else. They get to choose their friends too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Ooh, those are some good words. And that's a great thing to recognize, is that when you are building relationships, there will be families and groups that won't necessarily want that, and that's okay. Like, to respect that and give that space for them to find their own niche, or find, they may come back around to it, but approaching it and not feeling like, because I feel like sometimes we sway so much trying to figure out how to approach something, and then we feel like we don't want to be like a buffoon, so let's just not do it at all, which then not gives us an opportunity to become friends with somebody.
right. And I think that's a good to bring of like, how to approach somebody, and like in terms of like, if you have somebody at your family or at your church and you have sidekicks, like we're not trying to force everybody to be in sidekicks. Like I actually had a family. So I did sidekicks at a church I was at a couple years ago, and we had a family that like their son was he had a disability. I mean, and you would look at him and you kind of knew he had a disability because he wore a
Yeah.
helmet.
Right.
And this family didn't want to sign their kid up for sidekicks. Like he was totally fine, like in terms of how they viewed their son. Like he can fit in just like any of the other kids, which I'm like, yeah, I'm all for it. So you are going to have families that are like, my kid is fine. They don't need any others, special. And then you're going to have families who are overly anxious about it in terms of like, because they've been turned away from church, or they've
Right.
been turned away from different groups. And so they're going to like, okay, my kid needs this and this and this, which is also super helpful too, so that we can better love their kid.
So true. Wow. Listen, Katie, I just want to say I'm loving the feed today. Like everyone's weighing in such great ways, and I want to thank each of them. I want to thank Sylvia and Joanna. Joanna's awesome. She was just mentioning that she had there was a brain injured are in different worlds. The brain injured are in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should recognize that when dealing with brain injured, they should live a different culture. Just to recognize that each injury, each issue, each special need has its own criteria and has a way to approach it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I've been trying to read Joanna's as they come across the screen, and it seems like she does have a lot of really good input for.
Joanna's been fun. She's been rocking with us for like the last few weeks, and I've been loving her comments. I love all these comments, and of course, Jillian is always saying something really just thoughtful. Jillian is like my digital co-host from a distance.
I love it.
So let's do this. I want to ask you. I've got the 3, 2, 1, and I want to get through that. It basically every episode we have a segment what I call 3, 2, 1 hacks, and I ask the specialist about giving us practical tips that someone who's watching this can literally walk away, use, and say it made a difference. So I
Cool.
want to do a 3, 2, 1 with you. Would you do that with me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I picked 3 different topics. I mentioned them briefly to you, just before we started. But I look forward to what you got to say on this. Okay. So, can you give for everyone watching along 3 easy tips that someone can do this very weekend to check if their church is inclusive or not?
So if you are watching from home, check and see. Like, number one, the first thing to check and see, do you have closed captioning for your service? Are people who have, auditory impairment, are they able to read what is happening? Are there captions? So that's like one way to make your church service more inclusive for at home. Number two, another thing you can do is kind of think about, do I see people with disabilities being a part of my church community? Not just like, oh, we serve them, but are they a part of it? Do they serve alongside us? I think that that's something to think about when we think about inclusion. Is inclusion means everyone's around the table, everyone's voice is heard.
Mm.
The third thing to think about if you are on campus is, is it accessible, like mobility wise? Is it easy to get to the bathroom? Are the bathroom doors, like, would it be possible for somebody with a wheelchair to get into the bathroom? That's something that, we don't often think about because the rest of the US has to follow ADA, which was a law in
Right.
1990 that was passed, but churches don't actually have to follow ADA. So that's something that you can think about as just as you go through your church service this weekend. Just think about, okay, if I couldn't hear, would I be able to participate? If I couldn't see, would I be able to participate? If I had difficulty getting around, could I participate? So those are things to think about.
Yo, that's a good 3 right there. That's solid, man. You can literally walk away with those 3 and say, I can figure out whether my church is a church that has inclusion for families with special needs or not, just by doing that. If I can't see, can I still participate? The other one was what? If I can't hear,
Yeah.
can I still participate? And the other is, if I don't have very good mobility, will I still have access to the church? And you're very right. A lot of churches, we are not ADA compliant. And being ADA compliant means, can you get a wheelchair in and up and out of a particular place? Are there handrails for people who need handrails to hold on to? Stuff like that, right? So it's super
Yep.
important. I know a lot of our churches are like 1 billion years old. Like, and I don't know if you've ever been in one. If your church is a really old one, your church is a really old one when the stalls are like 2 feet wide and you have to turn sideways to get in, made of wood. So things that you could really think about. Thanks, Katie. That's awesome. Let's go to 2. Give me 2 easy tips that someone can do to make an initial connection with a family with special needs.
If it's at church, I mean, you could just walk up to them and talk to them like you would talk to anybody else. If it's after church, like, hey, what are you guys doing after? Maybe invite them to hang out after. I guess we're not doing that right now because we're
Right.
socially distant. And that's kind of another piece that has been a little bit, we've kind of had to rearrange how Sidekicks is going to work because of being socially distant. The awesome thing, this isn't part of the two, but the awesome thing that is coming out from families that have kids with disabilities is that they are loving online church because
Ha.
it's a way that they can participate without having to worry about their kid or having to, go out and, be in the world or whatever. So that's something that I would really urge churches, like, keep doing your online stuff. We don't often think about people that are in the hospital. We don't often think about people who can't make it to church for whatever reason. So keep doing your online stuff. Like, you're
Ooh.
really, really reaching families that have often felt marginalized and not a part of church. Okay, so two things you can do. Maybe if like, if you see somebody, it's so hard because like it's all one to one, right? Like,
Yeah.
or in person is how we meet people.
Yeah.
But right now we're not really able to meet people. So, do you know that you have a family in your church that has somebody with, a disability? Just reach out to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you guys, praying for you. You don't even have to mention the disability.
Mm.
Like, and then, what was the best thing that happened in your week this week? Like, to kind of start that conversation after you, like, hey, I prayed for you this week, like, care for them just like you would care for them another way. That's been the fun. I'm choosing to use the word fun thing to do, like, during the pandemic, is like to get creative and figure out, okay, how can we do this even though there's these barriers?
Right. I like how you turn challenges into funtivities. That's great. Okay, give us for the last one, give us one easy tip on what someone can do to get more education on what it means to have an inclusive church.
They can come this weekend to our training.
Ah, nice pitch, girl. Hey, by the way, if you're watching along or if you're catching this a little bit later, there is a training this weekend. Katie, fill us in on that. Give us a little info on that, please.
So the training is going to be for churches that are interested in learning how to become more inclusive.
Mhm.
For church leaders, it's in if you want to be like a sidekick for a kid. And the reason why we pick sidekicks, which I didn't mention before, is every superhero needs a sidekick.
Ha
So that's where the word
ha.
came from. Um, so that is if you want to be a volunteer for this ministry, if you want to learn more about this ministry, definitely come to our first training. It's going to be this coming Sunday, just from 1 to 2:30. I'm going to try and keep it relatively on the shorter side. I know we're all super busy. We're going to do it via Zoom, so you can just be in your pajamas and hang out with
Nice.
us.
Nice.
So we've got that going on this Sunday, and it's just going to be kind of that. We have a couple people signed up already. Some people are in school right now to be therapists, occupational therapists. Some have just recently graduated. We actually have Mr. Osai Brown. He's a special ed teacher over in Compton. He's going to be a part of it. I think he goes to
Phenomenal.
Tamarind, maybe.
Okay,
So
Tamron.
that's pretty
Okay,
cool.
Tamron.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tamron SDA.
So yeah, he's awesome, super awesome. So but we also have people that have never like had any experience whatsoever, and so this is like absolutely for you if you've never had any experience at all and you just want to learn and get to
Hey,
know more.
I mean, but it's gonna be just good for everybody.
Yeah.
Speaking of these trainings, and they're good. They're empowering. They equip you. They help you engage with real life issues, and a way you can make a practical, tangible difference in how your church deals with inclusion for families with special needs. But has there been any kind of backlash or negativity or things that people have said against or any kind of challenges of that kind that you've had to face?
Yeah, actually, I think there's been a couple different things. I kind of touched on it before. Like, there are families who are like, no, I absolutely do not want my kid a part of that. And their reason is my kid should just be able to be a part of this, which I absolutely agree with 100%. So there's that kind of backlash that we've gotten. We've actually had a little bit of backlash, like, from some past volunteers that were a part of it because their background was definitely much more on like the hands-on therapy side of things. And so they were wanting to like do therapy with the kid during Sabbath school. And it's like, no, 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 that's not what this is about. Like these kids are in therapy, like honestly longer. They're in school and therapy like over 40 hours a week, some of these kids.
Wow.
So we need to give them a break, and we just need to be there as support for them. We're not there to like therapize them. Because they don't need it. They're they just need to be loved. So those are kind of, the two spectrums that have been like, wait a second, so
Got it.
that's.
Thank you. Jillian, yes, this awesome thing is happening this weekend. One House, we will send out an email sometime this week just to remind people with how they can get in contact. But Jill, again, how can they find more information on the Sidekick workshop training that you're doing this weekend?
They can go to Pono. What's your website? I always get it wrong. I always say the wrong thing. Is it Advent? Okay, I don't know. Kayla actually put it in the comments. Kayla Soriano, if you see it in the comments, I saw that it's there. There it is, longbeachadventist.org/sidekicks. That is information. Well, that's just to sign up for the training. But if you have more questions specifically, you can email sidekicksmin, MIN, @gmail.com.
Sidekicksmin at gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
Solid. Yo, that's some solid work. Listen, we all need it. And it's going to make you a better ministry leader. It's going to make you a better member of the church. It's going to make you a better pastor. And I'm just speaking from experience. We've had some wonderful families with special needs that was part of our church. One mom had 2 kids, and one of them who was autistic, or how would you say that? What's the appropriate way of saying that?
So it totally depends on the family. You could say he's autistic or some families will say, oh, it's my son with autism.
Okay. But she was loved the kids, but the older son sometimes would get set off in the church and would run around, and just start yelling. And at first, we had a couple of our older people very, very like, what in the world? And like, we're calling out the deacons. And so, me and another pastor had to sit down with the family and, assure them that, they're loved here. Their kids are loved here. And that conversation actually emboldened us to be able to graph how we were going to preach and make sure that we are preaching in a way that reminds people that we all belong to this church together. And while it may be a nuisance to you in your space, in your normative space, this is in fact going to feed the spirit of the family, the mother and the children. And so it's all of our job to really come around and model to each other, mentor and disciple each other through this, as Jesus would. And let me tell you something, Katie, it actually changed the way that we worked with it. In fact, one Sabbath, one of the individuals who usually gets really riled up came by the young boy who was kind of doing his thing, and actually kind of just sat with him, and he sat down. And so afterwards, I went up to him and I immediately gave him some positive reinforcement. I said, you know what? God used you today. I saw how much you've grown. I want to tell you, you are doing a great job. Keep it up. And it actually began to change the way that the culture of our church and how we all began to take care of each other and love each other more in that sense. So we all need it. We all need the training. And it's good experience. It makes us better human beings and followers of Jesus.
And I actually think like maybe we just need more people with disabilities like in our churches versus more training, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, we can't just say, oh, come to our church, because I know a lot of families that I've worked with, they don't feel comfortable going to a church because they've been told they're not welcome. So it is important to like say, hey, we are inclusive. Yeah. This is like totally what we're about. If you have that on your website, when a family finds you, they're totally going to feel welcome. Yeah. But I love that, like that idea of like this family changed your church more than anybody else.
Oh did. Man, they did in a beautiful and wonderful way. Absolutely. I mean, I don't pastor in that local church anymore, but I still love the family and we still stay in contact. And yeah, they really helped all of us and grow in wonderful ways.
And I think that's like something that I would love, like, that's another like thing to like, Jesus works, the Holy Spirit works in all of us, no matter what.
Absolutely.
And so who are we to say like, oh no, that's not how the Holy Spirit works. Like he works in every single one of us.
Yep. He actually helped me personally grow as well in preaching, because at
That's
church
awesome.
you don't get hecklers at church, but this was the way this child was, and was working through his own things, and so I loved it. I was like, that helped me stay focused, and I was able to multitask. Sometimes I had to show him some loving attention, and then go back into my sermon and be cool with it. And everyone had to be cool with it. Like, look, this is what we do. It's okay. Like, because church isn't a liturgy or a script that we follow. Church is a community. It's a faith community by which we learn how to care for each other and allow Jesus to do transformation in all of us.
Amen.
Enough preaching. Okay, hey, listen. If you've been hanging out with me and Caiti, you've been hanging out with the coolest two people on earth right now. Caiti Lopez, speech language pathologist who works over at the Compton School District, is with me today talking about family with special needs, inclusion, and this cool, very, very cool Sidekick project that you got to jump on this weekend. If you need more information, check out the chat stream. It's all up in there, and it'll be cool for you to sign on. And Caiti, you're actually leading it, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll
Caiti's
be leading this one.
You're gonna be leading this. Now, my girl, we're at the end. We burned out our hour. And I want to thank each of you for following along. If you haven't already done so, I want you to go over to that button, find the button that says subscribe, and push it. And then subscribe to us. And then also hit the like button. And then share this mess with the world so they too can grow and have a great time. Before we end out, we cannot end out today without doing Love One, Leave One. Caiti, would you rock with me and do some Love One, Leave One today?
Okay.
Okay. Now, I want to invite all of you to join me and Caiti, as we always do. So get your fingers ready. You guys have warmed up the chats, so just keep rocking with me, okay? I'm going to give you, Caiti, two options. You've watched this show before, right? You watch how we do Tuesday Tea Time. So you choose one. You say, love this. It means the other thing never, ever again can be experienced by your children or your children's children or your children's children's children. Are you prepared for that kind of weight upon your shoulders?
I guess so.
Okay. I hope you guys are too. Get it ready. Get your fingers ready. And I want you to type in as fast as you can the answers to these next few questions we're going to have. Caiti, you've got 1 minute, 30 seconds. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's go.
Bring it.
Miguel's or In-N-Out?
Miguel's. Love.
Ooh,
Leave
love.
In-N-Out.
Okay. Public libraries or little free library book exchanges?
Public libraries, I guess I'll love.
Okay, all right. Ketchup or mustard?
Oh, I'm going to love mustard and I'm going to leave ketchup.
You are not in my universe. Okay, bike riding or paddle boarding?
Oh, man. I'm gonna love bike riding and leave paddleboarding.
Oh, ouch. Okay. Giants or Dodgers?
Oh, easy. Giants, hands down.
Okay. Spain or France?
Spain.
That was easy. Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Thanksgiving. But it's because we go camping with my family and it's awesome.
Okay. Anthony Davis or Pono Lopez, your husband?
I'm gonna love Pono.
That's what you promised.
Leave AD.
Salt and straws or McConnell's ice cream?
McConnell's ice cream. I'm gonna love and I'm gonna leave salt and straw.
Poke or sushi?
I'm gonna love poke and leave sushi.
SNL or Parks and Recs?
I'm gonna love Parks and Rec. And then leave SNL.
Man, I gave you a little extra time in the overtime here. Good work, Caiti. Good work. I appreciated at least 50% of what you had to say today in our game, just in the game. Love one, leave one. The rest of the time was wonderful, but during this little game, we might have some disagreements upon the Dodgers and other things here. Did I say tacos or pizza?
You didn't say that.
I'm gonna say it now. Tacos or pizza?
Okay, I'm gonna love tacos and leave pizza.
Wow. So tell us about this
I know.
fascination with tacos. just wondering
Okay.
what it is about tacos. Not that I would have known that's what you would have said. Not that I knew that's what you were going to say.
That's really funny. I haven't seen that photo in so long. It's because when I found out that I had celiacs, like I was devastated, but then I realized I could still eat tacos, so I could still go on living.
Oh, okay. That was a very good answer. Wow.
I was like, okay, it's okay. I can live. I can just eat tacos all the time, every day, every meal.
Caiti, I want to thank you so much for your time with me today. It was
and
really
thank
good.
you. Thank you so much.
I look forward to us talking more and getting more time in here in the future. Thank you, everyone else, for coming on and hanging out with the great Caiti Lopez, speech language pathologist, who is doing this awesome project this weekend called Sidekicks. I want you to find a way to sign up, join in, and check her out. It's going to be worth your faith community's growth in love, in inclusion, in goodness to the world around it, and to the families that need you to be more mindful about what they're going through. Next week, we're going to be hanging out with Tersa from Tersa's Mexican Cafe. That's right, I said Tersa's Mexican Cafe. If you like tacos, you're going to like next week. Show up because she's rocking. Just check her out on Yelp. Check her on Travel Finders. Check her on Google. You'll see how many stars that place gets. You can follow her on Instagram. She's got a killer thing going on right now, and she's been thriving even through the pandemic. So catch up with us next week when we talk to a entrepreneur, small business person doing good things here in LA, and we talk about faith, love, and God next week. Until then, my friends, I pray that God keeps you and treats you well and watches over you and your family. Until next time. Caiti, my love to you, my girl, all my prayers that God continues to lead you in all you do. Would you like to say goodbye to everybody?
Bye, everybody. See you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday.
But it's a see you later, not a goodbye.
That's right. That's right. All right. Enjoy your Taco Tuesday tonight, my friends. God bless you. We'll talk to you later.